The Whispering Shadows of Salem, Massachusetts. It was a chilly autumn evening on October 12, 2021, when Emily Carter, a local psychic medium renowned for her uncanny ability to connect with spirits, received a desperate call from the Thompson family. They had recently moved into a historic Victorian house in Salem, Massachusetts, a town infamous for its dark past of witch trials and supernatural occurrences. The family reported strange noises, cold spots, and shadowy figures lurking in the corners of their home. As Emily approached the creaking structure, a sense of unease settled over her like a heavy fog. The wind howled, swirling fallen leaves around her feet, as if the very earth was warning her to turn back. Inside the house, the atmosphere was thick with dread. The walls seemed to whisper secrets, and Emily could almost hear the echoes of the past reverberating through the hallways. The Thompson family, Mark, his wife Sarah, and their two children, Lily and Ben, met her at the door, their faces pale with fear. Lily, the youngest, clutched a worn teddy bear, her wide eyes filled with terror. As Emily set up her equipment, a flickering candle illuminated the room, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The family's dog, a golden retriever named Max, whined nervously, refusing to leave Sarah's side. Emily began her session, asking the spirits to reveal themselves. It wasn't long before she felt a chilling presence, a woman named Abigail, whose spirit was tethered to the house. Abigail had been wrongfully accused of witchcraft during the infamous trials, her spirit trapped in a cycle of anger and pain. As Emily delved deeper into the connection, the temperature in the room plummeted. The lights flickered and a cold draft swept through the space, causing the candles to flicker violently. Suddenly, Lily began to speak in a voice that was not her own, claiming to be Abigail. Emily's heart raced as she realized the girl was channeling the spirit, her small body contorting in ways that seemed unnatural. Mark and Sarah exchanged terrified glances, unsure of how to react. Over the following nights, the haunting escalated. Objects moved on their own. Toys were found in places they had not been left. The family experienced vivid nightmares, each one more horrifying than the last. Emily returned each evening, attempting to make contact with Abigail, but the spirit's anger only intensified. In one particularly harrowing session, Emily witnessed a vision of Abigail's death, a mob of townsfolk dragging her to the gallows, their faces twisted in rage. The screams echoed in her mind, and she felt the weight of Abigail's despair pressing down on her. The energy was palpable. The walls seemed to pulse with the spirit's anguish. As the haunting continued, Emily discovered that the house had a dark history of its own. Previous owners had reported similar experiences, with one family even abandoning their home in the dead of night, leaving all their belongings behind. This information only deepened the chilling atmosphere surrounding the Thompson family. Emily attempted to mediate between the Thompsons and Abigail. She urged the spirit to find peace, explaining that the world had changed since her death and that her pain no longer needed to bind her to the living. But Abigail's rage was insatiable. During the final seance, as Emily channeled Abigail's energy, the room erupted in chaos. The walls shook, and a dark figure emerged from the shadows, pulling Emily into a vortex of energy. The family screamed as they witnessed the horror unfold before them. In that moment, Emily understood the truth. Abigail was not just a lost soul, she was a vengeful spirit, seeking to reclaim her lost life by any means necessary. When the chaos subsided, the Thompson family found themselves alone in the house, the air heavy with silence. Emily had vanished, leaving behind only her equipment and a chilling message scrawled on the walls in what appeared to be blood. You cannot silence the past. The family fled, leaving the house abandoned, a haunting reminder of the darkness that lingers in Salem. To this day, the Thompson house stands empty, a local legend warning that some spirits are not meant to be disturbed. The townsfolk whisper of Emily's tragic fate, urging others to heed the warnings of the past. The haunting of the old mill in Frederick, Maryland. On April 15, 2023, David Reynolds, a self-proclaimed psychic and ghost hunter with a reputation for unraveling the mysteries of the supernatural, received a frantic call from a resident in Frederick, Maryland. The caller, a man named Jack, reported that strange occurrences were escalating at the old mill, an abandoned site known for its dark history involving tragic accidents and unexplained deaths. Intrigued, David rushed to the location, eager to uncover the truth behind the mill's haunted reputation. As he approached the dilapidated structure, a sense of foreboding washed over him, the wind howling mournfully through the trees. Entering the mill, David was struck by the oppressive atmosphere that clung to the air. Dust motes danced in the dim light, and the musty smell of decay filled his nostrils. He set up his equipment in the central room where local legends spoke of a miller who had gone mad and vanished without a trace. As David switched on his spirit box, he felt a chill run down his spine. With each question he posed, the static crackled ominously, and faint whispers filled the air. David's heart raced as he felt a presence lurking just beyond his sight. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the upper level, causing him to jump. Heart pounding, he ascended the creaky stairs, each step echoing ominously in the silence. At the top, David discovered an old photograph of the miller, his face twisted in a grotesque expression of anger. As he focused on the photo, he felt a rush of cold air and the lights flickered violently. The atmosphere shifted, and David sensed that he was not alone. The miller's spirit seemed to be trying to communicate, but the messages were fragmented and chaotic. As night fell, David began experiencing vivid hallucinations, flashes of the miller's ghostly figure wandering the halls, his eyes filled with sorrow and rage. The spirit seemed trapped in a cycle of despair, unable to move on. David learned from Jack that the mill had a history of accidents, with several workers losing their lives in a horrific machinery malfunction. As David delved deeper into the mill's history, he discovered that the miller had not only suffered a tragic fate, but had also been responsible for the deaths of several workers, all of whom had been caught in the machinery during a violent storm. The weight of this revelation settled heavily on David's shoulders as he realized the miller's guilt was as much a part of the haunting as the spirits of the deceased workers. During one particularly harrowing session, David was confronted by the angry spirits of the workers, their faces twisted in agony. They blamed the miller for their deaths, and David could feel their pain pulsing through the air. As the tension mounted, he attempted to mediate between the spirits, urging them to find peace and let go of their anger. David attempted to confront the miller's spirit, urging him to reveal the truth of what had happened. Just as the miller seemed to relent, a rush of energy surged through the room, and David's equipment began to malfunction. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a dark figure, an ancient entity that had been feeding off the mill's history of despair. In that moment, David understood that the miller was not the only spirit haunting the old mill. There were others, angry and lost, trapped in a cycle of torment. As David tried to escape, the entity reached for him, its cold fingers brushing against his skin. He felt himself being pulled into the shadows, the screams of the workers echoing in his ears. David was never seen again, but locals still hear whispers near the mill, warning others not to disturb the restless spirits within. Jack, who had once sought answers, now warns visitors to stay away, fearing that the mill holds not only the spirits of the lost, but also an ancient evil that waits for its next victim. The Curse of the Lighthouse in Cape May, New Jersey. On June 30th, 2024, Sarah Mitchell, a renowned psychic and author known for her deep connections to the spiritual realm, was invited to investigate the Cape May Lighthouse, a site notorious for ghostly sightings and tragic maritime accidents. The lighthouse had been closed to the public after a series of inexplicable accidents involving visitors. As Sarah arrived at the site, a storm began brewing, casting an eerie atmosphere over the crumbling structure. The wind howled, and the waves crashed violently against the shore, as if nature itself was warning her to turn back. As she climbed the spiral staircase, Sarah felt a cold chill enveloping her. The air was thick with apprehension, and she could almost hear the echoes of the past reverberating through the walls. At the top, where the beacon had once guided countless ships to safety, she set up her equipment, her heart racing with anticipation. Sarah began to connect with the spirits that haunted the lighthouse. She quickly established contact with the spirit of a former lighthouse keeper named Thomas, who had tragically lost his family in a shipwreck. His sorrow was palpable, and as Sarah delved deeper into the history, she uncovered an unsettling truth. Thomas had been blamed for the shipwreck that had claimed the lives of his wife and children, his spirit trapped in a cycle of guilt and despair. As the storm raged outside, Sarah experienced a series of terrifying visions, flashes of the shipwreck and the desperate cries of the drowning crew. The energy in the lighthouse shifted, and Sarah felt a growing sense of urgency as Thomas's spirit spiraled into despair, his anguish echoing through the chamber. During her sessions, Sarah learned that the lighthouse had not only witnessed shipwrecks, but had also been the site of countless tragedies. The ghosts of sailors lost at sea lingered, their cries merging with the wind. The lighthouse became a beacon of sorrow, a place where hope had long since vanished. In one particularly harrowing moment, Sarah felt a surge of energy as she attempted to communicate with Thomas. He revealed the details of that fateful night, the storm, the frantic attempts to save his family, and the guilt that had consumed him. The weight of his sorrow pressed down on her, and she realized that Thomas was not only struggling with his past, but also with the malevolent force that had ensnared him. In a desperate attempt to help Thomas find peace, Sarah conducted a séance, hoping to release him from his torment. However, as she channeled his energy, the room darkened, and a sinister presence emerged, an entity that had been feeding off Thomas's anguish for decades. This entity had thrived on the despair of the lighthouse, growing stronger with each tragedy that unfolded. As Sarah confronted the dark force, she realized that it had not only been responsible for Thomas's fate, but had also cursed the lighthouse, ensuring that anyone who sought to uncover the truth would meet a tragic end. The storm outside reached a fever pitch, and in a blinding flash, the lighthouse beacon flickered one last time. When the storm cleared, Sarah was gone, leaving behind only her journal filled with frantic notes about the curse and the malevolent force that lurked within the lighthouse. Locals now warn visitors to stay away, fearing that the lighthouse holds not only the spirits of the lost, but also an ancient evil that waits for its next victim. As you reflect on these tales of psychics and their harrowing encounters with the supernatural, remember this: the veil between our world and the next is thin, and those who seek the truth may find themselves tangled in a web of darkness that is all too real. The stories of Emily, David, and Sarah serve as chilling reminders that some mysteries are best left unsolved, and the past may hold horrors that are better left undisturbed. So, the next time you consider consulting a psychic, think twice. You may not be prepared for what lies beyond the veil.